Give love. You know this is for share. Take heart. Take heart. Burdens are for bearing. We can stand together, build a brand new day.
I gotta say, I played with Annie and my other friend Julia at the Wendell Full Moon Coffee House, and that'll be part of the story.
Sure will.
And here's a picture of it.
All right, so, good evening, Wendell. You're looking beautiful tonight. So, my name is Johanna Bartlett. Not everybody knows me. I didn't get to town until 10 years ago. I bought a house in Wendell, and I ran into someone who has lived in Northampton. No, I didn't know Wendell it was just a nice house. And this woman said to me, "Oh, Johanna, you don't know the half of it." And she was right. But gradually, I've gotten to know this town and found that it's a perfect fit for me. I love this town, and that's what inspired me to get interested in this movement, which is a truly unusual phenomenon, and you all have a lot to be proud of. This little town turned back the state of Massachusetts to preserve Bear Mountain. It took the effort of scores of volunteers. It took hours and hours of work by many, many people and much patience. And you see the testament to that when you look around the room and see how many different people. And I hope you'll all take a look at the poster we have of volunteers. Long lists of people who showed up, and all of them different. You know how sometimes the same 5 people? These are all different, and many of them you'll recognize yourselves on that poster. So we're going to hear from several people who lived through it. Michael is going to talk about the politics of dealing with the state as well as with organizations around the state. And he has brought some guests with him, and one is Arlene O'Donnell. Can you stand up and...
I'm actually from Ashfield, so Wendell isn't that unusual for me. That's kind of like going home. But I was at Massachusetts Audubon Society at the time, head of environmental affairs, so I was brought into this in the very beginning and saw it to its conclusion, so I'm very happy to be here tonight.
You're heavily present in the literature. And then we have Elisa Campbell.
Sierra Club volunteer at the time.
Yay. And Ken Kruckmeyer.
I'm from Boston. I was one of the bad guys. I was for highway engineering in Massachusetts Department of Public Works, who was confronted by the bear on our trip out. I'll tell you 2 more stories.
Thank you. All right, and then after we hear from Michael, we're going to hear from Ann Zach, who is going to, no, I'm sorry, we're hearing from Jonathan next.
Oh, really?
No. No, I'm sorry. I'm so good at this. All right, Ann Zach will talk about all the volunteer efforts that went into the struggle, but the fact is, Ann has made me no promises. I have no idea what she'll talk about. So. Buckle up from what I hear. All right, and then Jonathan is going to lead us in a song, just one. I wanted to say about Jonathan that as I got into the research of all the different documents, Jonathan must have been a writing machine. There are stacks of letters to people and agencies, and it's unbelievable. Newspapers, he just wrote and wrote for this. It's impressive. And finally, where's Josh? Why are you not? All right, Josh the bear.
Stair feet are loud in Wendell.
And you will tell us all about the bear. And last but not least, Kathy Becker, who I know as someone who was a really wonderful sound moderator for many years, and was also involved in the Full Moon Coffee House for years and years. Did you just retire? Is that how that works?
I didn't retire from the coffee house.
Okay, good. Oh, all right, okay.
She is the coffee house.
She is the coffee house, that's about right. So then she'll speak, and then if, with any luck at all, there will be time for people to make comments. I know a lot of you are bursting to tell something, and some of you may even have questions, and we should have time for some of that. When we're done, make sure you look at all the posters. Afterwards, there should be some time, because and Ann's pictures, thank you. And Ann's pictures are all over the wall. That would be Ann Zach. We have other Annies here.
And Johanna, make sure they all take one of these that are out there for,
Yes.
take,
You didn't accost every one of them on the way in? Did you miss someone?
no, I allowed them to have free choice.
Oh, how weird is that? Anyway, it should be a great evening. Thank you all for coming. And without further ado, we'll get started with Michael's slides.
Okay, I was warned about not talking loudly enough, so I'm counting on people back there to let me know if you can't hear or pass the word on. So this project, doing a presentation, involved going through 2 file cabinets of material that covered 10 years of work, and took me a couple of weeks just to put this little slideshow together. And I have to do it in 10 minutes. So the title, People in a Sense of Place, was basically my investment in working on this project. And we'll see some of the people and some of the places involved. This was the homework we had to do. This is about 300 pages of technical review material of the plans that Mass, then it was the Mass DPW, the Mass Department of Public Works, that designed the possible highways, including the one they proposed to go through Wendell. And these were some of the folks who worked on it. I never met 2 of the people, Sandra Baza nor Frank Orcaglia, but I certainly did meet John Willey, and for my own personal needs, he will show up several times in these slides, like here. And you may recognize the person on the left. Charles, who made comments to the draft EIS and wrote most of them out in his characteristic calligraphy. And then the next picture is a picture of Kathy Becker and Raymond Avery, who's since passed, and then there's John Willey. And his job was, he was an environmental engineer for the Department of Public Works. So when we heard rumor that the state had plans to build the road through Wendell, we picked up that Michael Dukakis, who'd just been reelected as governor, was coming to Greenfield to make an announcement for this grand plan. So I scratched my head about who could go and meet the governor and let him know, the governor, that we had other plans. So I recruited Klondike, and I think most of you probably know him. He's tall and well-spoken, and indeed he filled that job perfectly that night. So the governor certainly knew we had other plans. Then we started to respond, and I'm not going to read this poem here, but Anne and Jonathan wrote the poem and put together a greeting card and sent them along with carton eggs and a box of cookies, I understand. And Let me go back here.
We're coming to that.
I want to point out that on the right is Annie Diamond's father, Al. And I hope I can control this from now. So I spent a couple of days looking for a picture of this scene where Annie Diamond took a couple of boxes of blueberries to the governor and his wife Kitty, and so I got a hold of Ann just the other night, and she said, well, don't worry about it, I'll send you a picture. And there it is. And so I wrote this little haiku for the occasion as well. And we undertook making various kinds of propaganda, and this illustration was on the front of a handout that we worked up. Several people worked on that. Ann and Jonathan and I think did some writing for it, and Michael Brenneman did the illustration. So we're not quite sure whether this was a review of what we've done or was a plan.
Is that like Anzac and Elizabeth Warren have a plan?
What?
Is that like Elizabeth Warren and Anzac have a plan?
That was in my mind, I think.
Isn't that given away as a kind of a summary of things we've done?
So, anyway, I like that, and it just showed up in the pile of stuff we had. So, the next step that was important was that Mason Phelps had gotten involved in some of the discussions about what we're going to do with Route 2, and he set up a meeting with me and Terry Blunt and Mason. And I can't remember where it was. In my mind, I sort of think it was at the Wendell Country Store. But anyway, we enlisted Terry to help us out. And the important thing was he connected us with Alexander Dawson. And at the same time, I was connecting with John Willey, who had worked for the Mass Highway, Mass DPW as an environmental engineer, but he'd left and was working for a private engineering firm. But he thought it was pretty interesting that I was calling him up to ask him what to do about this problem. This drawing actually is one that he did very late. You might be able to see the date is December 2015, and it was just a few months before he died. So can you read the inscriptions on top and the bottom?
Did somebody read them?
There's no such thing as harmony with light only, as well as there's no balance with darkness only. So you can get some sense of what kind of friend he was. So with Terry and Alexandra, we enlisted Mass Audubon folks that included Marcia, and I don't know how much she worked on this, but she was friends with Roby Hubley and Arlene O'Donnell. And Arlene O'Donnell and I spent a lot of time lobbying the various officers in DPW and DEM and certain other places. And
Governor's Office of Economic Development.
right, about which I will briefly tell a story, and I hope Arlene will tell the real story of what happened. And it's Alicia on the right.
Which one is me?
You're in the front.
Sorry,
You're in the front.
you're right.
I didn't have any problem figuring
Oh,
that.
my neighbor got it wrong, so
That's funny.
Who's the other person?
my twin sister, believe it.
I did pretty well. So, when I was poking around looking for a picture of Elisa, I saw this painting that she did. I just thought it sort of fit with what we're doing. So, Ann may have a better explanation for the title of this slide. It's the title of a couple of pages she wrote about these three characters who worked together for how many years? 6 or 7 years working on this project. And as Johanna said, and I rediscovered, Jonathan had written a prodigious amount of correspondence to state officials, press releases, and writing for the various publicity documents we did. And Anne made my job possible by taking on the responsibility of making sure there was money, for one thing, to pay my gas bill and my phone bill. And the larger contribution was to raise enough money that we could hire a fancy-dancy lawyer. And which we did, and our legal guardian, which I pointed out earlier, is Alexander Dawson, had the pleasure of firing that lawyer. So the path was not straight. So we had other people that were backing us up. Pardon me. See if I can get rid of this. Myron, Jim, and Kathy had various tasks, and I like this picture because somebody from the Boston Globe came out, took it, and Jim and I were standing down by the Milledge River trying to protect it. And at the same time, we joined the Wendell Select Board, which Ann and Zach more or less encouraged us to do. And I have to say that Jim did all the work on the Select Board related to Route 2, which was a relief for me because I couldn't write that fast.
There he is.
There's Myron.
So, another character enters the scene. Teddy Bear shows up to greet the governor when he's trying to make an announcement about the Adams Road Industrial Park. And he shows up even more often. So here's another critical turn, which is the governor appointed Jane Garvey, who was a high school teacher from South Hadley, and she was married to the Hampshire County Sheriff, and they were pretty involved in Democratic politics, and I guess at least that was her qualification to join the Board of Commissioners of the DPW, where she served with Ken Krugmeyer and served under Fred Salvucci. And for me, I developed a relationship with her, which was I could call her up and she would answer my calls or get back to me. And there were times where we were sort of helping to guide each other when things got a little testy between our group and government officials. And we managed to work things out well. And I guess I want to say the last time I saw Jane Garvey, she came up to Karen and me at Bertucci's in Amherst and said, I got the call, which was that Clinton had appointed her to be an assistant federal highway administrator, and that job turned into being the administrator for the Federal Aviation Administration, and she was on duty when the planes hit the Twin Towers.
Oh my God.
So, now, I told you about Jane. I want to tell you about Ken Kruckemeyer. Not Ken Kruckemeyer. Ken Kruckemeyer's friend, Salvucci, who was, we were talking about at supper, was an able and helpful opponent in trying to solve this problem of the relocation of the road. So there are a couple other characters in this slide. On the left is Jim Donelon, who's the father of the present sheriff of Franklin County, and Robert Wetmore, who was a senator from right, and Dukakis and Jane Garvey. And I want to put this in because I had a couple engagements with Art Platt, who at that time was involved with economic development and was a real estate agent for a while. And we didn't agree about our plans for the road, but we had a friendship that continued over the years until he passed away. So I got these pictures together because of this particular team of Fred and Ken, who I know a little about their history of planning community planning around transportation. And one of the remarkable things they did was, and I'm sure they had some help, but they stopped the proposed Southwest Corridor extension that went from the south end of Boston out to 128, and it actually excavated the entire route, or most of it, before it was stopped. And we wound up putting a subway in that route and put parks on top of it. And then Fred, you can see he's tackling the central artery with a pickaxe. And he went on to propose the Big Dig, which we all know something about. Now this quote I liked particularly because I called Brenda Vincent recently because I had this experience where we had some meetings once our proposed plan was made public, and there were these public hearings to go over the plan. And the meetings at our town hall and the town hall in Irving got kind of testy. And I thought, well, we should probably take a break and have some food to eat. And she thought I was crazy. But then she just wrote this to me recently and figured that I had an idea that worked. So we also had some fun with music, with a festival that was set up at the place where I live now, actually, and managed to raise $2,700. And
What
Michael
year was
Branneman
that,
is the
Mike?
one who drafted the logo that's at the top of it.
Do you know, remember the year on that one?
I'd have to, I
Okay.
think it was 84, I'm guessing. So, this is the plan that Nathan Phelps and I worked on, and this is half the plan. And I mean literally. We'd hired a woman named Kathleen Lowry, who is a landscape architect, to draft this plan so that it dealt with all the contours and alignments that were there. Very briefly, this black line was the part that we proposed for going through the center of Irving, and then on the other end in Farley went this way, and in the middle between these two sections the road was up on the bank over where the existing road is. So it left the existing road as a local road and also potential as a place for a parkway where people could stop and fish or boat. But that was the idea. And Bob Ellis drafted a couple of illustrations of what the road would look like. And this would be standing pretty much where the car is where the boxcar would be. And you can see the railroad track on the other side. And on the left side is a berm that would visually separate our proposed road from the existing road and the community that's on the other side. So as I indicated, John Willie had been a mole for me, with one particular exception where he showed up at a meeting that was a turning point, which I hope, again, Arlene will talk about more, where we presented the low-profile alignment to Al Rain, who was the Secretary of Finance at that time, Secretary Salvucci, Jane Garvey, Ken Kruckmeyer, and John showed up with me, which seemed to turn the meeting around. And anyway, after that meeting, when they saw that we did have a plan, the governor was convinced that we had a plan, and Ken could probably tell you more about all the gear grinding that went on to study it, but they did. They spent $1 million studying the plan that we laid out. So you can see there were a number of people involved in the project that are no longer with us, and I remember well. So there are a couple of things that came out of that meeting, one of which was I had this connection with Ken and Fred Salvucci, and I forget how I picked up on it, but they liked old bridges, and this one in particular. And our town highway departments were about to do a chop job of repairing this bridge, and they turned me on to a world-renowned bridge restorer named Ava Lichtenstein, and we were able to repair this bridge instead of waiting for the state to come up with what would then have been $2.5 million to build one of those concrete monolith things across the river. And this is a gift from our effort that carries on till today.
Mary
Mary.
Gilman.
There you
Mary
go.
Gilman.
Yeah.
Through that.
Okay, this is a little slide I threw in here that there was a 1.9 minutes difference between the south bank alignment and the low profile alignment.
Great. Ken, would you like to start? Our distinguished guests are going to make a few comments.
The Phoenix Trust, the Phoenix Trust Bridge that you saw as the last slide is something that when I talk about the work that I did for the 8 years I was a member of the Highway Commissioner for Massachusetts in the 1980s, I speak of with probably among the greatest pride. We also saved the Trust Bridge in Shelburne Falls, which the engineers, in talking about proposing a new highway-style bridge across between Buckland and Shelburne Falls, proudly put on their frontispiece of the bridge design report that in I don't remember the date now, 82, I think, the earlier bridge had been damaged and was unsafe, and so the commissioners of the town were going to have to hire a new bridge folks to come in and put in a new bridge, and they succeeded over 3 weekends in the middle of the summer of replacing the bridge that had been damaged that spring with a new truss bridge, one of the 3 each weekend, and everything was working again. I don't remember the cost of it. And the engineers then went on to say what it would take to replace that particular bridge with a new, proper, responsible highway department bridge. And it was going to take 1.5 years of detours where you couldn't get across at all, but would go up to Route 2 and across that way and then back just to get an ice cream cone on the other side of the bridge. I looked at it because that was my job, to look at the bridge design reports, and I gave it back to them and said, we can't submit this. This is not acceptable. We can't do something that's going to take 1.5 years and cost, God, I don't remember how many $1 million to do something that these folks in 1882 knew just how to do over 3 weekends. How do you get good public policy about things as important as bridges or Route 2 or any of the rest? It's sometimes through extraordinary efforts of all the people who you've seen up here that it took, who didn't get paid to do this, but who did it because they believed it was right. The folks in Irving thought that getting that roadway over on Route through the State Forest in Wendell was the right answer also. So working those kinds of things out is not at all easy, and the job of somebody in public administration, if they take it seriously and they actually believe that everybody's opinion is important, is not at all easy either. How did I even get involved with this? I moved into a neighborhood, the south end of Boston, in 1967, and there was going to be a roadway at the end of the street. The urban renewal plan showed that, a couple of houses off the end of the street. That wasn't such a big deal. I was at the other end of the same block. And then somehow we found out that the plan to build it with just 2 houses was not accepted by the folks in Washington, that they really wanted to get federal money for the bypass that it would have required. And that was going to take 7 houses off the end of each side of the street. Well, that's a third of the street. That didn't sound so good to us who lived there. But we couldn't get anybody interested in worrying about that topic. The day there was going to be a hearing about the Southwest Expressway that would have brought 160,000 more cars into the city of Boston every day, not very many people were even going to go to the hearing. But that very morning, over the next block over on Tremont Street, there were a bunch of guys with jackhammers right in the middle of the sidewalk. It's a pretty wide sidewalk on Tremont Street in those days. It was a 16-foot wide sidewalk. You don't get sidewalks that wide very often. And the neighbors went out and said, well, what are you doing digging up the sidewalk right here in the middle of the sidewalk? Oh, you're going to get some new light fixtures. Isn't that going to be nice? Well, sure, we'd like some new light fixtures. We need new light fixtures. These haven't been replaced for decades. But why are you putting them right in the middle of the sidewalk? Oh, well, because that expressway that's going to go in out there, there are these 2 lanes going each way on Tremont Street. There are going to be 3 lanes going each way, but you're going to get new light fixtures, and we're getting ready for it. People didn't like the idea of 3 lanes of roadway on Tremont Street. And they went by the hundreds to that meeting that night and spoke against the highway. And I met Fred Salvucci, and the 2 of us have done things professionally together ever since. Sometimes, maybe if the accident isn't going to happen, the guys with the jackhammers, you have to create the accident that causes people to rally around a cause. You have to create the bear, or whatever it is. It's the letters in the field that somehow get widened because people were trying to erase it. I love this story. That get people to sit up and take notice. And to do more than just say no. But to try to figure out how to find a yes that people will find is compatible in some way or another among people who don't agree on a way forward.
Amen.
Just the past 2 nights I've been out at meetings in my own neighborhood trying to save 100 trees that the city now wants to cut down on Melniacast Boulevard, where the neighbors have been telling them all along this is a bad idea. And they say, oh, no, to get the bike paths in the way we want the bike paths, we got to move the road over, and if you move the road over, you got to cut down these trees. And the neighborhood has not yet been able to figure out how to convince the mayor not to cut down the goddamn trees that they've been saying for years shouldn't be cut down, that are planted because the neighborhood 40 years ago said you got to plant trees when you do this roadway. So I don't know the answers to always winning, because I think I'm just about to lose something that I feel very very passionately about. But I really am thankful to Michael to invite me here tonight, to see you, some of you who I know pretty well through the things that we did together in the 1980s, to see a lot of you who I have not ever met, but you're still here, and you're still caring about things that are important, and it is wonderful that you have gathered for this particular celebration of the success that you had in doing something very important for this town, for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and for the environment. Thank you so much.
So, Michael asked me to talk about how some of these people came together to help, Alexander Dawson and Roby and myself, and I was kind of surprised at that, because we've been working together for years, so we were already working together, and in fact working on projects where we had issues and had confronted Al Rain and Fred Salvucci. We'd been in their offices a few times before Route 2 popped up on the radar. So those relationships were already there, and we brought them in to support this effort. I think the real question to me was, why this? Because there's a lot of issues blowing up, especially at that time, all over the state. So as an organization, Mass Audubon Society, most people think about, you know, birds, but it's really about where those pivotal environmental issues are, where you can make a difference and really shape the future of policy, of how transportation planning is done. And you gotta have a good sense of where those opportunities are and what the right combination of characteristics is. And we didn't really think it all through, but as an example, when Roby Hubley said, well, they have a bear that talked to the governor, that's pretty cool. And then we found out that, well, you know, the legal issues, so 4F, hey, that's pretty interesting. So we can hang our hat on it. We can come up with a feasible alternative. Then there's our key. So that the test of the 4F case was going to be really important. And to me, what was different about Wendell in this case was we'd been involved in a lot of battles up until then, but we didn't have the local community involvement like we had here. I mean, meetings in Ann Zach's house every month through snowstorms and rainstorms, and we watched the stars falling out of the sky, but people were committed, and everybody had a role. We had all 4 quadrants of the brain were working. We had the analytical folks, we had the lawyer. I'm an engineer, we had a couple engineers. We had the artistic folks, we had the cosmic folks. We had the I'm never gonna stop answering questions folks, as much as I was ready to strangle Mason. He kept the devil's advocate questions all night long. But it made you think about things that nobody else was thinking about, and so you brought all those quadrants of the brain together, and we happened to have fun together too. You know, we had food, and the social aspect of it is really, really important. If you don't have that, then, you know, people are social animals. So that was another really, really important piece. And then Ken alluded to it. I was an environmental advocate and lobbyist for years, and what drove me out of that community, frankly, was that a lot of the environmentalists just wanted to say no. And it was easier to say no. It was harder to come up with a solution that could meet other people's goals. It's harder. You got to do some research. You got to do your homework. Maybe you got to come up with another road design. But that's what I like to do. And involved in the Connecticut River diversion, we didn't say no diversion. We ended up in no diversion because we came up with an alternative. You can save 100 million gallons of water by fixing your leaky pipes. So those are the things where it's a win-win. You've identified a solution to a problem, doing it a different way that maybe costs less money, that has less environmental impact. And you can build on that for other similar experiences down the road. We had that here. And I think we also had folks like Fred Salvucci and Ken. Let's not underestimate the power of that. I mean, there was somebody to talk to. There are a lot of people in government that you can yak all day long. They're not going to listen. They'll pretend to listen, but Fred Salvucci really listened. He came out here and counted trucks standing in front of the Boxcar restaurant. I'll never forget it. And so he was intellectually engaged and involved. That's what you want. And so the story that Mike wanted me to tell, and I'll end with this, I guess, is that I'd been in Al Rain was the chief of economic development, and that was to me, as a lobbyist, that was the driving force for this Route 2 thing. It was a Mike Dukakis commitment to somebody in Franklin County, the economic folks, to say, yes, that new Route 2 is going to be the economic salvation for Franklin County. You're going to get boomtown once that road goes through. That's a common perception. Big road, more people, more economy, more money. So Al was a genius. He was on the economic development side, and I've been in his office, and Fred Salvucci was also a genius, by the way, but Al had this nasty habit of, he'd sit behind his desk with everybody meeting around his table, and he would chuck little pieces of paper over his desk, and he had a little wastebasket. He'd be like shooting baskets during the meeting. I'm a basketball player, so in a way that was kind of cool. I saw many three-pointers he made, but it got kind of annoying. It's kind of rude. So we walked in with the person who wrote the EIR that said that the administration said supported a new road through Wendell State. We brought the guy in who wrote the book, unannounced. And there was Al Rain pitching bass, throwing a bass. Oh, here they come again. And we staged this so that John Willie walked in last. And the baskets stopped shooting, started missing the back. And you could hear a pin drop. And we came in and we said, you agree 4F is if there's a reasonable, feasible alternative, then you cannot put a road through a state park, right? Yes. Well, we'd like to show you all our alternative.
Yeah.
And John was one of the spokespeople. He wrote the EIR that supported the Irving's proposal to go, and he supported all of the features of that low profile alignment. When you have the chief engineer who wrote the EIR on your side, it's kind of over. And that was a major turning point in this whole. There were a lot of other smaller ones, but I think that's when, okay, they're serious, they've got us, let's talk. And it was respectful all the way up until then, but it was definitely, let's work together now. So it was a pleasure for me to be involved in this. It was a great win. We love to see them happen this way when you've got a lot of committed folks in town, and I hope this will be an inspiration for you guys and other people around here when you think the odds are against you, and you know you don't think you have the ability to overcome the odds. You can.
I neglected to say that Fred Savucci said to say hello to all of you. He is sorry that he is not here. I was hoping to be able to drive out and back with him, but he had another commitment. He couldn't get here tonight. He is truly a person of remarkable abilities, and to be very much thanked for his engagement in this and so many other important things in Massachusetts. Anyway, Fred said hello.
Lisa?
Everybody else has already said a whole bunch of things, and besides, most of them worked on it far, far harder than I did. I came out and came to meetings and supported it and had fun and ate good food and all that kind of stuff. But I did want to say one other thing that came out of this, which I was thrilled about, was most of that same environmental organizations that were working on this then transferred our efforts to preventing a large second home development at the foot of Mount Greylock, because we were already working together, knew each other, etc. And so the farm at the foot of Mount Greylock now has hiking trails and things like that, as opposed to 2,000 second home condominiums.
Can I just start right now? Absolutely. Oh, does anybody know what we need to do with this?
I can raise it a ways or stop it.
A ways, just, yeah, tall enough for Ann anyway.
Rosie's here, so.
That's good. That's great, that'll be fine.
I hope it stops.
You just have to stand there.
Hi, Ann. I want to take off from what Elisa said, is that at a local level, we organized, the same people organized to purchase Stillwater's property. We were so well organized and connected with state officials and Fish and Wildlife that we were able to purchase the Stillwater's property that then became Fish and Wildlife property. But that was, there was one night, and it was only one night, by the way, there were, every 200 feet on Locks Village Road, there was a red flag that indicated where each lot was going to be placed. And there was going to be, I think, 600 units on the side. This was a group of young men from Pittsfield, I believe, that were had an IPO on the stock exchange, and Wendell was going to be their playground. I was working in Cambridge at the time to help meet my payroll at the Wendell Country Store. This would be the truth. And I came home that night and saw those, and I just met Carol Wood, and that night we just took them. They weren't even up 24 hours. So I admit I was the one that I'm going to admit a few things tonight, and I'm going to tell you a few secrets. The name of my talk is How to Win a Road Fight. It is basically, it's a little twist on words. It's incorporate, bake, and switch. Not bake, bake and switch. Incorporate because you need to get money from, I was the money person, you need to give people tax deductible opportunities. And I think we baked ourselves to success here. I really you cannot win an environmental fight without baking. And the other thing is, I think it's very important to switch your attorney right in the mix. I have to write quite large. I'm going to have to admit here, even though I've done a lot of artwork, I'm doing less and less. My eyesight is failing badly. So I don't really see any of you clearly, but I can tell there are some people out here.
You can hear us.
Alexandra, I miss Alexandra so. Alexandra at my, there's a small goodbye party, talked about having met a small band of people here in Wendell when we first organized, and she did not think we had a chance in hell of winning this fight. And she was very clear about it. And then she went on to tell us why she thought this all worked, and for some of the same reasons that Arlene and you all put forward. She also said, she described me, but I think it's more Michael, as having cosmic stubbornness. And that was the reason that there were many reasons that we won, but she was very surprised that the outcome was what it was. You had a chance, she said. You didn't have a chance. It occurred to me while Michael was talking, we started this process 42 years ago. At the Yellow House, which is now, I don't know who owns it, on the other side of the Common.
Allison.
Is it where the Yellow House?
Allison.
Allison White. All right, Allison White. And at that time, I could name some of the names, but George Kulik was one of the people that was there, and at that time we had the wisdom to start an incorporation project. So we had Bear Mountain Preservation Association, and I was the president, and we were the fundraising arm for this whole thing, and we earned the money for whatever needed to be done. And most of the money was, actually the majority of the money was earned through bake sales. And then the Full Moon Coffee House began, and then that became the regular fundraiser. But the food thing was so important in two ways. It comforted people, and it raised us money. It made us visible, and you could do it everywhere. You could take all this stuff, put it in the car, show up at Stop and Shop, set up your table, sell stuff, hand out brochures, go to Foster's the next afternoon and do the same thing. And Jonathan and other people moved around the county. We had petitions out at the same time, handing out the brochures, trying to sell T-shirts, buttons, trying to make ourselves as visible as we could. T-shirts are all the same color. After a little while, you started to see blue T-shirts showing up around the counter all over the place. All this stuff building up, took us a lot of effort and a lot of time. Personally, I was involved in the very, very beginning of Nelquit, and I was one of the first two people that were involved in that. And my energy was being spent there. And then I heard about the route, the EIR, and I dropped what I was doing, and I was, at the time, was pretty separatist lesbian, and I really belonged in the Nelquit camp. But when I was 16 and 17, I used to drive along the Millis River. I was a water safety instructor at Lake Mattawa, and some days the river would be pink, some days the river would be yellow, some days the river would be green, and when I knew what was happening with the road, and then they cleaned it. And they cleaned it, and then I could ride there, and it just felt so wonderful. And then I saw, oh no, they're going to take, we fixed something, and now they're going to take that away from us again. And I didn't want that to happen. So goodbye, Nelquit. Hello, Jonathan and Michael. We were all at the meeting in 1977, and George Kulik was the incorporator. David Singer had just gotten his law degree. He pro bono started the 401c3, no, what 503c1, and we were prepared to start raising money when it was time. Our first fundraiser was just to get started. Was an enormous tag sale down on Route 2 on a holiday weekend. We earned over $3,500. This is 1979. 500 of that was a bake sale. 500 was bake sale. And we had so many people. We had every barn in town was full of stuff. We had pickup trucks delivering stuff down. Every carpenter took their sawhorses and plywood. We must have had 50 tables, 70 tables set up down there, stretched out at least, I would say, 150 yards. It was at the French King Antiques. Teenagers stayed overnight to protect the stuff, and Annie Diamond went down and chaperone them. And then from that, there were a whole bunch of bakers that started. So a couple of years later, when we knew we were really having to wind up, we already had people that had practiced earning some money. When Michael, Jonathan, and I got together, Michael, I think, was the one that pulled us together. We started meeting at my office in the Wendell Country Store, which is smaller than the bathroom here. And really, the three seats were very, very close together. And we met there for quite a while. That was where we met. And I owe the two of you an apology. I'm really sorry that I gave you a hard time that second night. And I'm really serious about it. I think I was way out of line. And I think it had it was effective, but I think I could have been much kinder. I'm going to admit to everybody what I did to them is on the second meeting I was sort of frustrated after the first because we were having trouble deciding who was going to do what. So I told them, will you please come in and pick which corner you want to piss in and we can get this territorial business out of it. I really, I think I could have said that better. True story. Michael Brenneman designed the t-shirt. Ed Judice developed the film that we took of the Hey Duke, No Route 2. We were in the air, oh, I should tell you this. We took the film to Ed, he developed it so we could get it there for the morning edition. Ralph Barnes flew the plane. Paul Menendez took the photo during a steep bank, and I got to be a passenger. It was so exciting. It was wonderful. A couple other things. Gina Caputo was the one who stole all the badges at the Democratic Convention so we could get the bear on the floor. Ed Boland kept our money safe. Ed and I worked together. We were check and balance with each other. So I would get the money and he'd take the money, and then I would check his books and he would check mine. So that worked really well. It was a lot of money to handle. Thank you all for trusting me to do that. And we did very well with it. We spent it well. We were careful. We made it last, and we hired an expensive lawyer, fired him, and hired one that was a little less expensive who really did the job. A couple of things I want to say here. It was great having you all at my house for all those meetings. When Jonathan and Michael and I first got together, we decided to, well, first of all, what we did is we all, we promised each other 10 years. It's sort of like a wedding ceremony. Seriously, we said to each other, I'll devote 10 years, and so I knew that they were good for that amount of time, and we all hung in there. And then we had to separate the jobs. And Jonathan had been in a highway fight before, and he had done a lot of writing and been editor of this, that, and the next, and so he became in charge of the publicity. I had handled money before for other organizations, and I was used to handling fairly large, and I was transporting money regularly because I had a business, so I was a money person, and Michael became the point person. He was the contact person, and he started bringing everybody together. And we met a few times, just the three of us, but it wasn't too long before we had to move out of my office because it didn't have room for a fourth chair. Really. And we did overlap, and sometimes we did get in each other's way. And I want to say something about the coalition. We did not have control over each other. Arlene O'Donnell couldn't say to Ian Zach, well, I don't think it's a good idea if you harass the governor at the convention. Too bad. It would happen, and then we'd go to the meeting later, and then you'd have to face the music. So everybody was acting independently with guidance from others, but and I think that was a really important piece. There was too much creativity to put dampers on it. Thank you too. I have a list. I just have the Diamond family, and I'm thinking of Bob and Amy Streeter, and Dale Kowacki, and Nancy, and Gina Caputo, and Con, and Terry, and Rosalie, and Bob Rosser, and Bob Ellis, of course, Dorsey, and it goes on and on. And Sharon, and Prudy, and Clearwater, and my cousin Carol, who owned the store with me, and I just imposed all of that on her. She's deceased, but thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol. Jimmy Two Feathers, Mark Stewart, Phyllis. It goes on and on and on. Klondike Sound was still to this day is helping out. Judy's Photography, French King Antiques, Wendell Country Store. Thank you, Carol. And I have to say, Josh, is so important. You were so important to this effort. And I'm going to pick you out especially because Josh is the person that came forward with the idea for the Full Moon Coffee House. And we were meeting at Brenda's house, and it was a fundraising committee. We had a fundraising committee, and I used to pull that fundraising committee together, and all of us were on it together. But and we didn't go for it first. He said, Full Moon Coffee House. Oh, no, yeah. No, he says, there's something special about the full moon. This is really going to work. And it did. Enjoy my artwork. I do.
Jonathan will entertain and delight us.
So how are we doing on time?
I left my phone on the other side of the room. I have no idea, but I think we're okay. Hang on, I'll check with them. I want to watch.
three pieces and I can cut one of them out if it would be helpful.
I think you should, looking at the time right now.
No, we want to add
But what about Joshy?
We're not cutting Josh out.
To me, the Route 2 effort was a way to kick in as a new member of this community. Also, a defense of the wild mountain on which Susan and I and the kids lived, where paradoxically our homestead intruded. It gave me practice in accommodating different opinions, but most of all, it suited my concern for wild nature, the maker of life system equilibrium. After I arrived here in 1978, we were soon meeting upstairs in the Yellow House next to the town hall fight to fight this highway threat. I'd just been part of fights against two interstate projects in Hartford, one battle after the other. When the Route 2 meetings started up again in 1983, I found my ideas generally bypassed in favor of Michael's vision. Slowly, as we worked side by side from 1983 till 1987, I came to appreciate his approach and to almost accept his congenital stubbornness. Clearly, Michael, you managed the coalition building and state-level diplomacy well. You treated the cause as a discrete cause and trusted the good intentions of public officials and the power of one-on-one. Even given the high anxiety in the business community, which was tremendous, the pressure for that highway was very strong. But we never achieved strong rapport. I was congenitally unable to give up the goal of protecting natural function broadly, something that would require new basic insights on the part of my species and the people that we were trying to educate. Ideas I probably seemed naive as I tried to share them. I worried about piecemealing, taking issues one comfortable craziness at a time, winning battles and losing the opportunity to radically open minds. But I stayed with the fight as it came down. Anne's breadth of talents, her usual humor and warmth, her strategic thinking, her attention to detail, eased the participation of many of us. She ran meetings, and in her strong and modest way, she organized many of the pieces that became the engaging public face of the Route 2 campaign. It may have been out of conversations with her that I started the Committee for a Route 2 Upgrade. I don't really remember, but that work produced a bunch of letters to officials, including one to Governor Dukakis urging him to improve the road, not move it, signed by small businesses in 6 adjacent towns, like a department store, several clothing package and country stores, a bowling alley, 2 restaurants, a motel, a junkyard. Take that, Chamber of Commerce, proponents of the South Bank. Since I lived 2 miles of bad road into the woods, I sometimes slipped out of touch. I came into town one day to learn that Wendell folks and the Bear had infiltrated the Democratic State Convention. I learned of the Hayduke escapade the same way. Growing to accept that besides my lack of a telephone, I probably wasn't a personality fit with some of these wonderful capers. Through Susan, I saw how much thought and work went into putting on the old Deerfield soiree. Hippie elegance, no touch or detail forgotten, farm to table linens, such an amalgam of talent there. Spot memories. A group of us sat in Governor Dukakis's corner office. One by one, we offered our thoughts to him. He sat, smiling uncomfortably. A vivid moment. Anne, Michael, and I are crossing a street in Boston on our way to see, I believe, Secretary Salvucci. Suddenly, Anne bursts out with something like, "I just love this, the 3 of us, we're a real trio." I satirized us in the Route 2 Superheroes, a stand-up routine before an upbeat audience at the Full Moon Coffee House. I must have done it better than the script itself would have suggested, because an audience member, red-faced, beckoned me over as I left the stage and said, "Amazing, I was laughing like hell and I didn't even know why." The whole effort was high stakes enough that I think it brought some of us to the cutting edge of our personal learning. Thrown together with a passionate common objective, we saw people's gifts help the cause. Klondike Kaler, George Gulick, Karen Pierce, et al. In the early years, Michael, Ann, Jim, Myron, Kathy, the late Mason Phelps, and the many, many other, shall we say, unique participants from in and out of town in the 80s. I felt connection and gratitude shoo away my doubts and fears, my concerns about ideological differences and personality clashes, and I think others did too. We sensed positive movement, whatever would ultimately happen. That slow, steady payoff might explain how the supposedly unstoppable momentum of a spanking new stretch of highway was eventually stopped, saving this rare, reed-wild-grown section of Massachusetts. Key to our success was that an actual sensible plan was shown to exist. But another part of it, I believe, was the respect the campaign earned among public officials and neighboring townspeople for creativity, positivity, and hard work. Speaking for myself, our 4-year undertaking to correct that planning mistake helped thicken my skin. At the same time, it, and living in the soul space we call Wendell, helped bolster my sense of human belonging and the greater value of that than I ever understood before coming here. Somebody said a 70-year-old shouldn't pick up a guitar, and I don't understand why. I mean, I haven't picked it up for 30 years, and my back has recovered pretty well.
Are you going to be able to do this?
I think so. Should hold it nice and steady.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
This is a song that I performed on one of the walks on the wild side, the big one, out in the middle of the woods. And I guess it's self-explanatory. The miller's flows o'er the foot of the bear, beast with oaks and pines for hair. Oaks have left this slope we're lost in, but they didn't leave it to Boston. The Duke would carve the bear's long flank. Once he wanted the opposite bank, the hills of Irving, but there they say some Homo sapiens live and play. They're taking an interest in us out here. Boston is looking this way, oh dear. Do East and West really meet right here? Why can't they meet at the cottage for beer? Over on that right-hand side, Route 2 become a private drive. For some who say, like Muhammad Ali, bring the peace and quiet of the mountain to me. Which path to choose, which one lose? This one don't, the other one do. There's a third that, there's a third that makes amends. It's the path of common sense, my friends. You're taking an interest in us out here. Boston is looking this way, oh dear. They're sending a load of macadam to town, and they don't know quite where to put it down. Just shift her away from the paper mill, which owes her thanks for a brimming till, on into town a mile west, where she'll do her straight and double best. For she's back home right where she grew, a little bit rough, a little untrue, but she'll be prudent, feasible, cool, when she comes home from finishing school. They're taking an interest in us out here. The governor is looking this way, oh dear. His silly stakes all among the trees. To the right side he will take them, please. They're taking an interest in us out here. Progress is coming this way, Oh dear, do East and West really meet right here when they could meet at the cottage for beer?
Thank you, Jonathan. And Kathy Becker.
I was surprised that my name was on any of the lists because I thought I was invisible, and because I wasn't part of the brilliant intelligentsia or part of the core of the hive. I was like a lot of us, and it took a lot of us. We knew who the queen bee was, we knew who the drones were, that we were the worker bees, and I think there's so many of us in here who drove the cars, who went to the meetings, who baked the cookies, cookie by cookie, we did it! And the farm-to-table tablecloths are still there at the Full Moon Coffee House. Oh, I have to dress part, because we still are. This is not an antique. This is currently in existence, and it has separated from the bear. I'm going to give this to you. And so it was made for me, and now it should be for you. There were a lot of us, and also you guys, you three smart guys, you couldn't control us. And so there was a lot of originality going on. And so a lot of the musicians and the actors, Court, and the people who drove and baked and went to the meetings. I have things here that say there were DPW meetings and 25 people showed up. 25 people of us who we were being taught to not be shrill, but to be polite, and we didn't unfriend people when we disagreed with them. We friended them. And so when Myron Becker got in an argument with Carl Bittenbender, who you called Cruel Bittenbender, because he was on the, as a joke, just private to let off steam, because the Chamber of Commerce didn't like our plan. And the Mills River Watershed Council didn't like our plan. They were more with the Chamber of Commerce, and so Myron went to Trout Unlimited, and he befriended Carl Bittenbender, and he got the Mills River Watershed Council, and there were a lot of people doing that.
Yeah.
And the Wendell Post. So I'm supposed to talk about the Wendell Full Moon Coffee House, but I'm stripped naked of my entrance, so I'm going to talk about the Wendell Post. Because the Wendell Post started first in 1977. So I'm not going to talk long, but I just want to talk about our community and why we are so special and what we did. Because this is the very first one of the Wendell Post. And I don't know if there's any others exist, but this is it, Annie Diamond. The very first one. And, oh no, it's this one. You can see we were young because you can't even read it. But it started in April 27th, 1977. And it started, our first one was an easy one. We only took on the campaign and who was running for office. But the second one is what was going on for our community. We had a new chief police, Ed Chase. We were dedicating our new church. And we were the election wrap-up was there. We were protesting at that time Seabrook, the Clamshell Alliance. That's one of our mothers. And the Ladies' Aid were meeting. The Wendell's Ladies' Aid was meeting. And James Thompson on West Street was asking about garbage. And firefighters were attending classes for the first time. And so, and what's in there is a Route 2 update. Yeah, on Memorial Day, a geologist called in by private citizens. I wonder who those private citizens were. A geologist called in by private citizens was able to go over the length of the route of the proposed highway, both by air and on the ground, and he saw that many trees had already been cut along the forest, and he noticed the ledge and drainage and erosion problems. And when the samples had been tested, the Wendell Post was going to make a full report. So we set up an infrastructure with the Wendell Post, and we became informed. We all became on the same page. We had leadership, we had brains, and we started setting up infrastructure. We had the Wendell Post, and we told each other what was going on. And so by the third one, in August, now the South Bank is rejected, and we're all celebrating because it was a startling announcement that the unabashed jubilants, this is written by Gary Nielsen, that they found that the northern bypass was objectionable because even though it was a heavy favorite among the Franklin County Planning Board, the Irving and Wendell Select Boards both voted unanimously to approve it. Our own town voted unanimously to approve it. But there were, 25 Wendell residents objected at a local DPW hearing in March, but they found that it was found by that it wasn't environmentally sound to put because of the gradient and erosion. So for a moment we had jubilation, and the whole story of Route 2 is in the Wendell Post, and it lives. It also lives. And you can find that, and perhaps even Google yourself, because it's searchable, and all you have to do is search on UMass Wendell Post, and it's searchable. And if you want to know anything about what happened in Wendell, dog catcher, Anzac, Port Dorsey, you can just search. You can search this special collection because some of us worked really hard to get it so that it's every single issue is kept in perpetuity. So, and then we have the musicians who so we have that famous poster. This is the first one, and I probably shouldn't be in possession of it because I'm not so careful, but this is the first one, and it would be good if somehow somebody brainstormed and took care of it, like you.
I actually have made a poster out of this already.
Yeah, but that's the original. And then in this one, so one of the legacies, this is in the poster in the back, it has Charles doing his laundry on the front. It's in the Boston Globe, and it talks about one of the effects. I wouldn't let the Boston Globe show my laundry on the line. Charles is very brave. It says, one of the effects on our communities, most agree that the turning point in the relationship between the locals and the newcomers occurred in the early 1980s when the state proposed moving a 2-mile stretch of Route 2 across Millers River through the Wendell State Forest. At first, many locals were unopposed to the idea, remember?
Oh, yeah.
But the newcomers organized a coalition of environmental groups and others to fight the state. The plan was defeated after several years of wrangling, and in the process, the newcomers won a grudging respect from the old-timers. And I think that legacy still remains in our town. And a lot of us that did it, the bees, the worker bees, were here. And not all of, like Sylvia, Nina, Katie, Parker. So I look back in the room. Karen, there's pictures of, I do have this picture. And I'll give this to you, Julia Burrows.
Oh,
And-
God, thank you so
and,
much. Oh, I really was dreaming of that.
And it's got,
Oh, you intuited
it
me.
says, what year here, where are you? Anyway,
Oh,
so you
thank
can
you
have
so
that,
much.
that's not the
Annie's here
original.
too.
Annie,
Annie
yeah,
has
Annie.
it, and
Annie's
myself,
here.
and Julia Burrow.
And I gotta say, one thing that, now the one I'm gonna return now, that I've talked about how great our community is and how we build an infrastructure and how we learn to not unfriend, but to friend. And how we did this by gentle and persistent persuasion. And how we made this be not a cause, but a way of life. We married to you guys. And we made it a way of life. But we kept the structures alive, and a lot of it had to do with the musicians. And, oh, my most important point I just forgot, and that's why I can't fight battles anymore. So, and now we do have the Millis River Watershed Council on our side, always protecting us. Dave Small, thank you, is here. And we have a lot of resources. And the coffee house is my ad. This is my moment for an ad. Because the Wendell has kind of fallen away from its coffee house in a way, because there's so much more entertainment now. And I just do want you to remember that the Wendell Full Moon Coffee House now it still lives, and it is not part of the, it's rogue. It doesn't have a nonprofit organization covering it. We're underground. And there's people here that are part of that. I was given credit for it, but I'm only just a worker in a group of many who believe still in the coffee house. And it's important because the dream of what we created here now is a seed for other organizations. And so the bands, every band that played during the time that we were cooking played for free. Every dime went to us. So it wasn't just baking, it was also the music. They gave, they believed, and they sang their songs. They went out with their songs and they sang them in other communities, and they were our troubadours.
Now, I say that interrupt by saying the Outer Space Band is playing tomorrow in Greenfield, and they were way important.
There's a poster on the door about that, please look. And so, so the Wendell Full Moon Coffee House does exist and still could use your support. The musicians do make 60% of the door, and the beneficiary makes 40%. And it still is going to a good cause that
And all the
started
proceeds from the yummy stuff too.
the bake sale, yeah, goes to the beneficiary. Oh yes, right. We're still baking every cookie. It's still going to a good cause, and we owe it to a lot of and Josh was part of that crazy coffee house and stuff. All right.
Gosh, you're up.
Last but not least.
Hardly.
Last but not least. I thought I was going to be cut by the time everyone finished talking. Oh, you're going to be up here for a minute. But there are a few things that I'd love to share, because when I came to Wendell, I was thrown out of Greenfield because they didn't want an irate clown that lives in his waffle window restaurant. And I didn't know what to do, but I came to Wendell, and I found this woman named Zach, and she immediately befriended me, because I was some out of touch clown activist from who knows where, and we hit it off. We immediately hit it off. And I became a right-hand clown. I couldn't go to meetings. It was impossible for me to go on any of those meetings, but I had my heart open to those meetings. She would come back and she says, we need da-da-da-da. Okay, we got that. All right, we need this, da-da-da-da-da. All right. And that worked for me. And, you know, and basically what I want to do right now is like, yes, I brought the idea of the coffee house to the committee, but it was a Wendell idea. I stole it from Wendell. They had the one log coffee house before even the full moon coffee house. Does anybody here remember?
It was right next door, right over here.
All right, and that was with the Outer Space Band doing it, and me and Jimmy.
No, they weren't there
It was
anymore.
before the outer space band.
All right, so me and
Bad
Jimmy
dog.
Two Feathers were like, this place needs a coffee house, and I just happened to kick into the financial meeting, and I remember that day when we were all gathered in New Salem in that house, when I brought up, wasn't my original idea. My original idea was the full moon, to have it on the full moon.
Right.
But not the coffee house came from the one law. And when I said, have a full moon coffee house, the owner of that house's cat took a pee up my cat. And I remember, like I said, full moon coffee house. It dripped down from and they all came, get full moon coffee. It was Bob Streeter who came the next week. They said, Waffle said, what? For? Yeah, let's go for it. So we went for it. And then one of my contributions was, being the MC for the open mic. And without Jimmy Two Feathers and without support, because and I never had emails, it was like, first come, first serve, you know, they just came out of the woodwork. And some of the open mics we didn't want to even hear the main act. People were coming out and just doing wild things. But then I just talk about this, the bear, the original bear, the bear idea. Rosalie Rosser, we were at a meeting. Rosalie Rosser, my cousin in Maine has a bear costume. We'll come up. Yeah, I'll get it, and we'll bring it here. So she got the original bear costume. And then there was all kinds of conversations among the triad of the group. Are you going to let Josh Vassis in that and be out in front of all those cameras and everything? No, what do you got to, you're going to do it. The bear is a great idea. And then Michael Idoine came to me and said, Josh, you're going to be in the bear costume. And you are just going to hold a sign. You are not going to say one word.
For good reason.
Michael Idoine.
I was impressed. And I was so impressed that I didn't say one word. And the whole first newspaper story was about the fact the bear didn't talk. I can't even believe it. And make sure when you leave this gathering, these are all free booklets of the Hey Duke adventure with the story. Please, please, please take a booklet. I've got them all. I've put more out. Make sure you go with that. Now I want to continue with this story, okay, about the original bear. So I got the bear costume in a garbage bag from the Wendell Country Store. And then when I was finished, I put it back in the garbage can, and I bought the garbage bag, and I brought it back to the Wendell Country Store. I said, hey, Rosalie, I got this in here. Put it over there, okay, with the other. Yeah, I put it down. 2 weeks, 3 weeks goes by. They call me up. Waffles, what'd you do with the bear? I brought it to the country. You know, you did something to the bear. Where is it? Hey, listen, I put it in the bag you gave it to me. They couldn't find the bear costume. Oh, man, what was going on? So, of course, the clown got blamed for, misplacing the bear, the original bear, not the one that Nancy made. And then weeks later, all of a sudden, I get a call. oh, what happened? Well, they were taking all of the garbage bags to the recycle center. They were, yeah. And they were throwing them into the crusher. They were. And when they threw this one black bag into the crusher, the bear fell out of the garbage bag to the amazement of like whoever was taking that. I was cleared. Wobbles the clown didn't steal the bear or anything. The bear was returned to Rosalie Rosser. She took it back up. Nancy made another bear, and the bear then proceeded. I was just one of many bears. That bear did a unicycling at the Franklin County Parade. That bear did hugs at the convention. That bear went everywhere. And then you'll see on that poster outside, eventually I had to wash the bear. People were going, we can't get into that bear. It's like, oh man, come on, get this bear. So anyway, what I'm saying is I'm over my time now. I just want to bring, this was one of the original bear that I was holding with the original thing. And it's just part of the magic of a community with such dedication to nature and their environment and our thing. And it's exactly what I wanted in my life, and I tripped into it. I got adopted by this feminine community of everyone, you know, basically. And I'm really, like, very happy to be part of the honoring of Anne, of Michael, of Jonathan, and the whole crew of Wendell that just was letting their hearts out. And we saved the state forest from greed and corruption. You enjoy it. Oh, and it's partially a true story. There's some manipulations and some exaggerations.
license.
And so, you know, but it is basically true.
So there are so many stories, and I didn't know where we'd quite be at this point, and I thought about taking questions, but I think what people here would really like to do, now you may prove me wrong in a minute, is tell something. And what I would ask is that if you raise your hand and tell a story, just tell one and do it fairly quickly, and we'll move on to someone else, and nobody gets twice until everybody's had a chance, because I feel like there could be a lot of stories. Am I wrong about this? Can you raise your hand if you might have something? There's one. All right, you start.
All right, I'm going to break your rule and tell two. The first.
No, you're not.
Anarchy! Anarchy! Well, first of all, I apologize for coming from Worcester County.
Who are you?
I live in Royalston. My name's Alan Young.
Oh, hi, Alan.
I am a journalist, and I was a reporter for the Athol Daily News when all this was happening. And I know journalism in its many formats and styles, and I used the best style that I could to cover this story and really tell the side of the Bear Mountain Preservation Group and the Wendell environmentalists, and I was very, very happy doing that. And I think the Daily News covered this story quite well, and I'm proud of my role in that.
The only one that did.
Yes.
Well, and that could be because the editor, Barney Cummings, didn't like the Chamber of Commerce. the other, that's...
wait, so I just wanted to say I apologize for stealing your title from your book chapter called
no,
The Saga of Route 2.
I was proud of that.
Why it sounded so great when one day I realized I'd gotten it from you. Now, shall we hear from someone else and come back?
No, this is one sentence only. One sentence only. Route 32 in West Royalston is another road that was hit by the state with a horrible plan, and we fought it successfully, and that the horrible plan never came through.
I don't even have a story. I just want to say that I was just a guy with a fly rod, and a harmonica, and a sauce business or teriyaki stand. I just wanted the river to, I'd done a lot of work with the Trout Unlimited chapter, and I was also on the board of directors of TU and the Millers River, Watershed Council, which was a very conservative organization at that time, the Millers River Watershed Council. So I was able to.
You sell
bring them.
yourself short.
That's all I did. I just wanted to fish for trout.
Okay, who else has a little? As people remember stuff? Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick thing, it doesn't really have much to do with Route 2, but more to do with Wendell. So the first contact that I ever had with Wendell was a Full Moon Coffee House that I went to with Bob Ellis way back in the day, before I even moved here. And the Flying Red Pajamas were there, as well as the Route 2 Bear. And Jonathan got up at the open mic and swallowed a bunch of air and belched Rumble's pond. And I said, I'm home. True. You remember it? You remember that one? That was such a good one. Oh my God.
You know, I've got to correct you. I was not the person that did that. I think I know who did though.
No, it was you, John.
It was another tall person,
It
Bob
was
Streeter.
you. Bob Streeter.
Bob Streeter did that.
No.
I would never do that.
I emailed Bob Streeter, and he said he was too busy on his farm to come down. He was glad to hear from all of us. I've talked to a lot of people.
Wasn't you, Jonathan?
Dale Kowaki couldn't be here tonight, and I also found out that Susan made aprons for the people at the Full Moon Coffee House. Did you do that?
I might have.
I missed it. And
Yes, tablecloth.
No, she might have made
Susan,
aprons too. Yeah.
Susan made aprons that
Yeah,
were
yeah.
little gold things with pockets.
Okay.
That was so we would put, because if we put the money in our pockets, we just might go home and go, oh dear. So she made us gold aprons with a little tie in the back. So one side for the money and one side for the coins. And yes, that's where they came from.
Dale Kowalski also made tables that could be broken up, invented them out of sewer pipes and stuff so that they could throw these tables up to the coffee house every day.
Yes.
Another comment? Yes, go ahead.
After one of the Full Moon Coffee House meetings, I was in the Full Moon Coffee House committee for a while, but it was at Ann Zach's house, and we came up with the idea of a free box. Because I had a place in Cambridge that had a free box, and I said Wendell would be a perfect place for a free box. And it was at Ann Zach's house. We built the free box. People brought boards up and things, and there was a committee of about 6 or 8 people. Josh was one of them. I'm one of them. Clearwater, inshallah, was one of them, and a bunch of people, and we put it on the back of the truck and we schlepped it to the center of the town and everything like that, and it kind of symbolized what the same thing, the community. It's all the same thing. And so my prayer for the town is that it continues. That people. The thing that I'm noticing is that they're all most of the people here are over 50. I'm just noticing that because I do Old Home Day, and any of you guys that want to help, I'm begging. But it's the same thing. So my prayer is that the younger people, they are doing it to a certain extent, but and I'm hoping that the more they get the feel of community, because internet changes things.
Michael, you had another story, one more for Ann.
Oh, quickly, this is a story that Karen wrote about Ann and me. I was home one night and there's a ruckus in my driveway. And
louder, Michael.
I was home one night and there's a ruckus in my driveway. And I went out and there's a pig. I don't know where the hell it came from. And so,
Like a boar?
I don't think it was a boar, but
Domestic pig.
it was large enough. Karen thought, because she'd seen this in Mexico that she could take a rope out and somehow harness the thing. That didn't work. So I went out and grabbed a hold of the hind leg of this pig. And I told my daughter Gillian to call Ann. So Ann comes with a pickup truck and a pig box and puts the ramp down, and I'm still holding on to the leg. And I'm going to hold on to it because I don't want the pig to go away after we went to all this trouble. And Ann gets behind the pig and the rest of us, and she yells, "Push, push, push!" And I think it was a metaphor for the way we work together.
What else have we got? We are running out of time.
I guess I've got one thing to say.
I was
Fight isn't over yet. Thank you. We have a Wendell State Forest that is at risk of being logged. You've seen signs that say Save the Brook Road Forest, and that's our Wendell State Forest. The oaks are being cut if they have the chance.
They've been marked.
So we have a group called the Wendell State Forest Alliance, and a lot of us are here, and we want to offer you the opportunity to join. Anybody who wants to send me an email, I'll send you the links, all the information. The Wendell State Forest Alliance is a Yahoo group. Priscilla, I had no idea Priscilla Lynch was a Wendellite, and her baby was born in the house next to mine. And would you like to say anything about the group?
Well, great. What's great is what we've all heard tonight. We have a great time, and we have lots of stories too, and it is about community.
And saving the trees.
You know, I just can't help but just speak out. Like, we're going to save the trees. We've just heard that the coffee house was asking for more support. And maybe the theme now of the coffee house can switch to save the forest. We'll bring back the bear. We'll bring back the desertorama. We'll bring, oh, okay, well, we got the desertorama.
Our logo is Save the Forest, Save the Climate. It's really all about climate change.
We've got the coffee house in position. It needs that energy, and who knows, maybe you can get me out of retirement and I can MC again. I promise I won't say certain F words.
Yeah, you said that before. Anyway, very quickly, there are a lot of posters out there with details that I thought would come out. Some of them didn't. I don't know what we're going to do with them after tonight, so they may be around for people to look at or not. There's hard to find places to put them. But if you get a chance tonight before you leave, we'll turn the lights on and you can take a look. There's an awful lot of sweet little details from all of the folks who sent me stuff. I want to thank all of the people who sent me all of the stuff that made it possible to put this together. It was an incredible journey for me. It was just the most exciting trip to start getting these little pieces and then putting it all together. And I just was so amazed by this town. So I wanted to thank you for being that amazing town, and try to take a look at some of it because it's really fun. I especially like this list of volunteers here. So many of your names are up there, and it'd be fun if you found your name on there. Now, there is a cake, so it's over on the table over there. Please have a piece before you go.